Welcome to the Wander Mode podcast, where we celebrate the fearless spirit of women embracing life's wanderings. Where every story is a spark of inspiration and reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful moments happen when we simply embrace wherever the journey may lead. Welcome back, friend. Today's episode is about me reflecting on my interview with Leena and Ambily, the mother-daughter duo who are Montessori educators. This particular interview touched on two things that are very near and dear to my heart. One, motherhood, or being a daughter, and two, education. What really stood out to me while they were sharing their story is their relationship very much mirrors their values as educators. And I want to dive into a little bit of an explanation on what I mean by that. So when I listened to Ambily talk about how she was not convinced that she wanted to take over the school from her parents, it was very clear that Leena stood in the background and allowed Ambily to have that autonomy, to be able to pursue her own passions, to get to that conclusion on her own or not get to that conclusion on her own, that she wanted the school. And Ambily was explaining how during the pandemic, her parents were in India and she stepped into a role of monitoring the school, and that it was probably the worst possible timing to step into that role. However, it brought Ambily so much clarity about whether or not she wanted to be a continuation in this school. And when you step back and think about it, they are Montessori educators. And one of the big things that they pointed out about Montessori education is that there is a deep respect for the individual journey. When you look at the way that Leena approached this situation, she wasn't this overbearing mother who was saying, well, I've built this school and I've put so much time into it and I've invested in it and you need to take it over and all the things, right? All this pressure. She wasn't even convinced that she wanted Ambily to take on the responsibility of this school, that she wanted Ambily to do with her life what she valued. And yet, through stepping back and honoring Ambily's independent journey, Ambily discovers that yes, in fact, she does want to continue her mother's legacy at this school. I thought that that was an absolutely beautiful example of the Montessori approach playing out in a mother-daughter relationship. The second way that I saw it play out as far as their personal lives intertwining with their lives as educators was when they were describing how Leena's mom was not given the opportunity to finish her education. She chose to stay back with her grandmother who was passing away, and she then missed her opportunity to finish her education. But she always emphasized how important education was and made sure that Leena understood that education is something that you will always have. It was truly this value, this love of learning that she was passing on to Leena, and Leena was then passing on to Ambily. And in listening to them talk about that particular story, the Montessori approach truly is about having a love of learning. It's why the curriculum has to be the child. It's why the child has to be the path. There is no list of checkboxed items that you have to say, like, they've done this, they've hit this benchmark, they've completed this standard. It has to be the child, because the child will show you the way. And if the child has a love of learning, there will be a natural progression based on the child's love of learning. But you have to have that love of learning there in order to see a progression. And I touched on this a little bit in my interview with them, but I am also a big advocate of being a lifelong learner. We should never be done learning new things. It is so good to continue to challenge yourself beyond the education that you've been given, beyond the education you've chosen, whether that's a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, a master's degree, a doctorate, doesn't matter. No matter what it is that you're choosing to do in life, you can continue to be a lifelong learner. There is so much information out there and so many tools that we have access to that can continue to help challenge our beliefs and maybe make us more certain in our beliefs. It allows us to have a broader world perspective. It allows us to take on things and find the courage to maybe try something that we never would have tried before. And that is empowering. That is when learning is at its best, is when you are actively seeking it out to be able to then utilize it in a certain way, improve yourself in a certain way, enhance your life in a certain way. And it really was the catalyst for why I ended up leaving education, is because I had this opportunity to challenge myself, to have to go learn how to do something like creating an online course and a consulting program and working with clients and learning how to market and putting myself in these vulnerable situations in order to grow as a human being, in order to grow as a woman. And I knew that I needed to take the opportunity to learn in order to bring something into my life that could only be done through me being open to taking on a challenge versus saying, nope, I'm good. I'm comfortable. I like it where I'm at. Now, I'm not saying that to be a lifelong learner, you have to leave your W-2 job, go for over a year without making money, and then hopefully all will be well. It could be a pottery class. It could be reading a new book. It could be going and learning how to write. It could be listening to TED Talks. There are all sorts of different avenues that you can use to continue to grow as a human being and challenge yourself and learn. But again, it comes back to respecting the individual journey, right? Like, it has to be your passions, your interests. You have to be the one leading the way, and nobody else can do that for you. When it is fueled by your passion to learn something, it will produce the greatest results. And that is really what came out in listening to Ambily and Leena for me, is that through this passion for learning and really instilling a love of education throughout multiple generations, it doesn't mean it's what led Ambily into wanting to take over her mom's school, but rather it became a natural progression of something that she loved to do because it was her choice and her decision to continue that legacy after being able to experience it and get to that decision on her own. My conversation with them also really touched a chord from the mother-daughter relationship perspective. Leena was very, very proud of all that Ambily has accomplished with the school since she has stepped back in her role of caretaker of the school. But ultimately, it really came back to how much their relationship seemed to be rooted in this mutual respect and deep love for one another as individuals. Ambily had indicated that she doesn't talk a lot about the family connection when she's giving tours or when she's giving speeches at family nights or things like that, but that she just really felt like this year she needed to honor her mom and her role in starting this school. And it was so clear the respect that Ambily felt for her mom, and Leena in turn, all of this respect for Ambily for who she is as an individual and what she's been capable of doing, even though many things are probably different from what she would have done or how she would have processed things at the school. And when I think about the relationship that I had with my mom growing up, I would say that one of the biggest reasons why we are so close to this day is because at the end of the day, although we may have differing beliefs and differing personalities, there is a respect for who that other person is as an individual. Respect doesn't equal I agree with every single decision, but rather I have a respect for who you are as a person and my relationship with you. My mom supported me in decisions that I know were incredibly hard for her, but yet she knew I wanted, Case in point, when I moved to Alaska to go to college, that was not her ideal choice to be in a completely different state that was a multi-hour flight away. However, she was the one who was there helping me pack up boxes and finding the things that I needed for my dorm room. And she flew me up there and helped me unpack and get sorted. She is the one who, when I chose to jump into short-term rentals, she was 100% behind me. She's the one who's showing up and painting, who is listening to me when I'm stressed out about something going on with a guest. All the things that demonstrate over and over and over again that although my life has been so drastically different from her own, that it's okay, that there's this respect for who we are to one another, and there's a love of who we are for one another. And I feel so lucky that I have that kind of relationship with my mom, because I know that is not a reality for many. And I really appreciated listening to Ambily and Leena's story and seeing multiple generations of women that really were so grounded in their culture and their love of education and their love of family and experiences together. I would encourage you to consider the relationships in your life and how can you bring about more mutual respect or understanding to those that you love? How can you nurture your relationships with others by modeling the principles that matter to you, like having a respect of an individual's journey, or having a love of being a lifelong learner and looking to those around us for ways that we can open up our worldview or learn some skill from somebody else that we know. If you don't have relationships in your life that are reflective of these principles that you try to live your life by, perhaps start seeking ways to find groups of individuals where you can start to build those types of relationships in your life. I'll use the example of a book club that I joined recently, and one of my most favorite things about this book club is that although we are reading the exact same book, every single woman comes into those conversations with a slightly different lens. And there's always something to be learned from one another when we recognize that a different perspective isn't necessarily wrong. It's just different. And it can bring an appreciation for the fact that we are all living slightly different lives, and that does lead to slightly different perspectives, but that there is beauty to be found in each perspective, that there is love that can be felt for an individual person because of the individual journey that they find themselves on. Thank you for joining me today on this journey of reflection. And if you would like to hear more about the Montessori method or hear the full interview with this incredible mother-daughter duo, be sure to check out the links in the show notes. Thanks for wandering with me today. If you were inspired by this episode and think it would ignite a spark in a friend, don't hesitate to share. And if you're craving more from the Wander Mode community, hop on over to Instagram at WanderModeCo. Meet you in the next episode, and until then, wander on.